The circus, a word that once meant laughter, lights, and lions leaping through fire. But behind the sawdust and the glitter lies a much darker story, a story built on exploitation, deception, and pain. What began as a celebration of human skill and wonder slowly became a stage for human suffering. Tonight, we lift the curtain on that story, the real history of the circus, a history of genius and cruelty, of spectacle and secrecy, and of people whose lives became performances they could never escape. The birth of spectacle. Our story begins not under a striped tent, but in the roaring stone amphitheatres of ancient Rome. Here the circus was no laughing matter. The Circus Maximus could hold more than 250,000 spectators, the largest stadium ever built in the ancient world. Crowds screamed as chariots thundered past, as gladiators fought to the death, as animals from Africa and Asia were slaughtered for entertainment. The Romans invented the idea that awe could be engineered, that danger could be performed. And though centuries passed, that idea never died. It simply changed costumes. Philip Astley and the Circle of Control, London, 1768. A cavalryman named Philip Astley discovered something curious. When he rode his horse in a perfect circle, about 42 feet across, centrifugal force kept him balanced as he performed tricks. That simple circle became the blueprint of the modern circus ring. Astley's performances grew, soon featuring jugglers, tightrope walkers, and clowns. But it was more than a show. It was order, discipline, a man commanding motion, danger, and even chaos. Astley didn't just invent the circus, he invented the illusion of control. When others copied him, most notably Charles Hughes, then later the Batty and Sanger families, the circus transformed from a show to an industry. By the 1800s, it had crossed the Atlantic, and in the young United States, the circus found its true home. Barnum and the Age of Humbug. Barnum didn't invent the circus, but he perfected its deception. He called his exhibitions the greatest show on earth, a travelling empire of animals, acrobats, and oddities. But Barnum was also a master manipulator. His so-called human curiosities were real people, sold as wonders of nature, when in truth many were disabled, poor, or desperate. He showcased them as freaks, a word that would stain generations of performers. There was General Tom Thumb, the little person Barnum began exhibiting at age 5, Chang and Eng Bunker, the original Siamese twins, and dozens more. Their faces sold tickets, their lives were contracts, and the darker the story behind them, the more fascinated the crowd became. The Elephant Man. Few names capture that fascination, and that tragedy, like Joseph Merrick, the man cruelly dubbed the Elephant Man. Born in Leicester, England in 1862, Merrick suffered from severe deformities that twisted his face and body. Unable to find work, he turned to the only industry that would take him, the sideshow. For a penny, Londoners could come and stare at him under flickering gaslight. They would gasp. Some would laugh. Others would turn away in horror. But what they saw as a monster was, in truth, a kind, intelligent young man who loved poetry and craved human connection. In 1884, he came under the care of Surgeon Frederick Trevis, who gave him a home inside the London hospital. For the first time in his life, Merrick was treated as a person, not a spectacle. He spent his final years reading Shakespeare and building models of cathedrals. He died in 1890 at age 27, suffocating after lying down to sleep, something his condition had long prevented him from doing. In his attempt to rest like everyone else, he tragically lost his life. The Hilton sisters. Fame in chains. 3 decades later, another act would captivate the world, not for talent alone, but for tragedy. In 1908, Violet and Daisy Hilton were born in Brighton, England, conjoined twins, fused at the pelvis, facing opposite directions. Their biological mother, unwed and impoverished, abandoned them to her midwife, Mary Hilton, who saw not children, but opportunity. From infancy, the girls were displayed in pubs and travelling shows, forced to perform for paying crowds. By age 3, they were branded as the Brighton United Twins. By adolescence, they were international stars. But the fame wasn't theirs. The money, the tours, the contracts, all controlled by their guardians. They were exhibited, sold, and displayed as curiosities. Yet they could sing, dance, and play multiple instruments. They were genuinely talented, yet forever defined by the way they were born. At age 23, they sued their manager for control of their own lives. And won. For a time, freedom tasted sweet. They toured vaudeville, appeared in films like Freaks and Chained for Life, and lived independently. But when vaudeville died in the 1950s, so did their career. They found work as cashiers at a small grocery store in Charlotte, North Carolina, a quiet, modest life after decades in the spotlight. Then in 1969, silence. When the sisters failed to show up for work, police entered their home. They found the twins lying side by side. Daisy had been dead for days. Violet, still conjoined, had lived on beside her sister's body. The autopsy suggested Daisy died first of the Hong Kong flu. Violet survived, alone and trapped, for 2 to 4 days before succumbing herself. No one knows exactly what she endured in those final hours, unable to move far, unable to separate, unable to call for help. It is one of the most haunting endings in entertainment history. Animals, violence, and the price of wonder. If human performers suffered under the tent, the animals did too. The travelling circuses of the 19th and 20th centuries relied on elephants, lions, bears, and tigers. Creatures wrenched from their natural homes, confined in cages, and trained through intimidation. Documents from the early Ringling and Barnum years describe elephants being beaten with bull hooks, starved, and chained for up to 23 hours a day. Trainers called it discipline. The animals called it survival. Even after public awareness grew in the late 20th century, the abuse persisted behind the curtains, until public outrage forced change. In 2015, after more than a century, Ringling Brothers retired its elephant acts. 2 years later, the company shut down completely. When it returned in 2023, it did so without animals. Perhaps, at last, the circus had learned the difference between awe and cruelty. The circus was always a mirror. It reflected what society wanted to see and what it wanted to ignore. It celebrated daring, invention, courage, and yet it fed on difference, poverty, and pain. Beneath the laughter of the clowns and the trumpet of the ringmaster was the sobering rhythm of human cost. Performers who risked everything for applause. Outcasts who found belonging only beneath the big top. Animals and people alike turned into commodities in the name of wonder. Today, many circuses have reinvented themselves. Acrobatics, music, light, and storytelling, without cruelty, without cages. The art remains, but the exploitation is being stripped away. Yet, the shadows of the old circus still linger. In our fascination with spectacle, our hunger for shock, our obsession with staring at what is different. The circus teaches us something profound about human nature. That our curiosity can be both beautiful and dangerous. That wonder and exploitation can exist in the same ring. And that the real story of the circus is not about animals or clowns. It's about people. People like Joseph Merrick, who long to be treated as human. People like Violet and Daisy Hilton, who lived and died joined together yet forever misunderstood. And people like us, who, in watching, must decide whether we will repeat history's cruelties or learn from them. The circus was once called the greatest show on earth. But maybe its greatest act was forcing us to confront our own reflection. Because behind every trick, every laugh, every gasp of awe, there was always someone paying the price for our entertainment.
Thank you so much for watching. If you found this video interesting, please like and subscribe.